Hi, I'm James. Welcome to Slaying Sober, where we tell stories of addiction, recovery, and hope. Wherever you are on your sober journey, know that you do not stand alone. This is part two of Joe's story. If you haven't listened to part one yet, I strongly recommend going back and having a listen. This part two is all about the power of change and the power of forgiveness. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I loved recording it. Enjoy. Talk to me about how you view forgiveness.
I think for me, it's incredibly important. It's therapeutic. It's not so much for that person you're forgiving necessarily, but it's it has a powerful effect on you and your growth and your moving forward. I'll give you two examples where I had to forgive. Now, you remember the story that I told you about the guy who beat me up when I was in year 7, the year 9 boy?
Yeah.
Okay. I encountered him again when I was 18.
When you're a bigger boy.
A much bigger, totally different person. He when I saw him again, he'd become a stoner, tall, much taller than me, and I saw him in a shopping centre. He didn't recognise me, and I went up to him and I grabbed him by the throat and I picked him up there and slammed him on the ground, right? And I'm choking the life out of him. And I said, and I lifted my fist and I was intending to pound him to death. I was going to kill him because he's the one who started my pain, all this pain, this journey, right? Because I would dream about him. I would dream about caving his head in. Really horrific dreams, right? So I finally got him.
And you had the opportunity
and I had him on the ground. I lifted my fist and I was going to pound him. I said, I'm going to kill you now. And years later, when I spoke to his brother, he recounted how when he looked into my eyes, he saw death. He saw death. He saw his own death because I was intending to kill him. That's how bad I'd become. Okay. And I remember some gentleman tried to pull me off, and I remember hitting him in the leg, and he fell over and screaming with agony, some older folk. I don't know who it was. And I remember this girl grabbing me like a banshee, and it was his girlfriend, and I threw her off, I hurt her as well as I tossed her across the shopping centre, and people are screaming, and someone said, call the police, call the police. I was oblivious to that. And as I raised my fist to deliver the death blow, literally, something else happened. I was wearing a denim jacket, and there was a little girl pulling on my jacket crying.
Wow.
She would have been about 4, I think, I don't know. And she said, please don't hit my daddy. Please don't hit my daddy. Please don't hit my daddy. He'd become a father in that time because I was 18, he was about 21 or whatever, and they had a kid early. And in that moment, I realised I'd become a monster. And I had a choice. Do I go through with what I had intended, or do I honour this little girl's wishes? I honoured her wishes. And in that moment, I let him go. But I realised that he was different. He was no longer this aggressive, hard-ass individual. He'd become a stoner. He was, addicted to his cannabis, and it really changed him. He was a broken man. But he had a little girl.
Yeah.
And something inside of me broke that day, and I realised I needed to let him go. So I forgave him. And I said to him, I wanted to kill you. I wanted to kill you because you've made me the monster that I am now, but I'm going to forgive you. In that moment, I don't know why I did that. I forgave him and I let him go. That's when I sort of, something shifted inside me ever so slightly. Because as I began my journey into a criminal lifestyle, in a sense of hanging around certain characters, there was always something that pulled me back.
Yeah.
That little girl triggered my humanity, or ignited my humanity, and my forgiveness started to cause something to grow within me.
Yeah.
But the final person that I could not forgive was was the young man that had abused me when I was 5.
Yeah.
Right? He'd gone. He died. He died of cancer, I heard, right? Look, I did catch up with him when I was 16. He was in his 30s then, and I tried to kill him.
Yeah.
And, of course, the police got involved, and, that began my journey with the police. But I couldn't tell the police why I'm beating this guy up.
Yeah.
There was so much hatred. And some years back, I had the privilege of, I had a friend of mine who I had a meal with her, and she was sitting opposite me, and she knew that she was dealing with her own trauma because her son had been killed by her ex. Right?
Yeah.
Right? She's a fairly well-known person,
Okay.
and she's sitting opposite me, and she knew that I was dealing with this unforgiveness because I said, how can you forgive the man that murdered your child? And she said to me, it's not for him, it's for me. If I don't forgive him, then unforgiveness is like a cancer that eats away at my soul, my spirit, and then he's won. So in forgiving him and letting it go, I am free. I haven't lost my humanity.
Yes.
And I thought about that. That stayed with me. And so I had to sort of speak it out one night alone. I spoke it out, and I forgave the man that abused me as a child because he was the product. And she said to me, she forgave him not because he deserved to be forgiven. She said, I did it because that is the right thing to do. It will prevent me from becoming who he wanted me to be. You know, tormented, monstrous, hateful, vengeful. And I realised I still had that sort of hatred, that vengeance. And so when I forgave the person that abused me, it took me to another level.
It's like hatred is a cancer, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
that's
if,
what she
if
said.
you have hatred inside of you, it just eats away. And how do you have any enjoyment or zest for life?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that, though. Yeah, it's very noble.
I think I needed someone like her. You know, I mean, her child had been brutally murdered by the dad, and for her to forgive him. I thought that was ludicrous at the time, but, you know, I understand the power of forgiveness. It does, I can't quite articulate it, but it does something to you. It changes you in here. And so the cancer is gone. So I'm able to, you know, love people unconditionally now. And it's the power of love and respect and dignity and unconditional positive regard, whatever you want to call it, that shapes and changes people. So, yeah.
What about being forgiven for those that you've hurt?
Look, I am sorry for the people that I've hurt, and there are people that have forgiven me, and there are people that will never forgive me, but I have to accept that. I have to accept that. I am the cause of you know, pain in a lot of people, unfortunately, and they may never forgive me, but I don't seek their forgiveness.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's like an accept.
My journey is not predicated on their acceptance or forgiveness. Yeah, it's a journey of growth. I now have to avoid hurting anyone else. Do you know what I mean? I am sorry for what I did. The most important thing is that you have to be, you know, sorry for what you've done. I'm sorry for the people that I've hurt. Yes, I can blame it on circumstances and situations that caused me to become the person I was. I can blame it on the drugs. I can blame it on the alcohol. But I have to take responsibility. And sometimes there's the consequences of those actions, you know, with the law, you know.
I think when you live a spiritually aligned life, when you give back to others, when you're of service, where you're a good moral citizen, I think it has acceptance, doesn't it?
Definitely. My mother always used to talk about the dude who walked on the water, who was the king of forgiveness, you know, and she sort of always said, you need to think about him, you know, and I thought, well, if he can forgive people and after getting nailed on a cross, well, then I can certainly forgive the people that hurt me. Yeah, I think that sort of that example was very powerful. You know, that's the ultimate expression of love and forgiveness. I think not just to forgive, but to treat people with love and respect.
Yeah,
and understanding that often people, and as well as ourselves, we are the product of our circumstances. We are the product of the choices we make, and we become who we don't want to be. But we can change that. We have the power to change that. Forgiveness. To forgive others is certainly the key, but also not to predicate our journey on whether we're forgiven or not. There are those that might not forgive us. Yeah. But they have a right not to forgive us. Yeah. But that's not going to stop me from loving them and respecting them. And that sounds a bit corny, but
no,
you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's none of my business whether someone forgives me.
That's right.
In a funny way.
That's right.
But if I choose to forgive and love myself, then it allows me to love and to feel love.
That's another important thing. I'm glad you mentioned that. Forgive the self, forgiving yourself. I could forgive others, but I couldn't forgive myself.
Yeah.
That was another stage in my journey. I needed to forgive myself, and move on from that. You know, I remember as part of the way of the warrior, sometimes you need to look at the mirror of reality. See, when I train fighters, I use this analogy. When I train fighters, people come to me and they want to fight, right? When I was training fighters some years back. Now, they might be good boxers, but they have no ground game, right? Or they might have a good ground game, but they can't take a punch and they don't know how to punch. You know, mixed martial arts, I taught, okay? Yeah. So it's about getting them to look at the mirror of reality, to identify your weaknesses, to identify your strengths, and then to work on your weaknesses, to accept you have a weakness. Like I look in the mirror of reality and I didn't like what I saw. There were some things that I liked, but there were some things that I didn't like. So you don't reject that and don't look at it anymore. You address it. You change it. You work on your ground game if you don't have a ground game. You work on your striking skills, you know? Yep. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it does. And like in a 12-step program, we look at our character defects.
Yes.
And
that's
what are these defects of character that I have? Let's make sure that they don't come to the surface. As best as possible, but also we have character traits that are good, and let's do more of that.
Continue to build on those, but also work on the weaknesses. So we become more balanced in our journey forward. So the way of the warrior is about being balanced. You know, balancing, and understanding we have a dark shadow self as well. But keep that in check. Keep that in check, because sometimes, see, anger is an energy that can drive us. So rather than directing the anger towards an individual, sometimes that anger fuels my passion to bring about justice, social justice, to be an advocate for people who can't speak for themselves, you know, or to push through the pain. And when, you know, there have been times when I've felt the urge again, you know, but I'm able to use that anger. No way. No way. You know, no way, you know, I'm going to keep pushing forward. So you need that anger as an energy to drive you to push forward. I'm not going to allow this feeling to dominate me and drop me and cause me to acquiesce and be subdued. Never again. So it's when you reach that, it's like reaching that point, enough is enough. I've had it. Fuck this. You know, I have become the monster in my daughter's nightmares. But now we have a beautiful relationship, you know, so, and of course, you know, I've got grandkids, you know, I've got tons of grandkids. So, you know, I have to be a light in their world, you know, a source of love, a source of patience, a source of kindness. I couldn't have done that if I hadn't have begun the healing journey. And we're always in recovery. We're always in recovery. So whereas before I was barely surviving, now I'm thriving. Like yourself, we're able to impact on people's lives and create a better world. You know, me through teaching people to become AOD workers, AOD support workers, mental health workers, community services workers, to empower them so they're able to make a difference in the world. So
you've got, I suppose I look at it as two different avenues of your service in helping others. You've got the intellectual side of AOD, classroom teaching, which is a bit ironic for someone with learning diffifculties that wasn't good at school.
I know, I can't believe it, you know.
So talk to us about that. How does that look?
Well, I guess, as I said, that same energy, that anger, that was directed towards, you know, hurting people, I redirected it to overcoming my disability, my inability to read and learn because of my dyslexia. It was difficult. It was hard just to focus and to read a book, you know, to sit down and read a book. That was very hard. So I used that same energy that came from my anger to say, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to fricking do this. I'm going to beat this.
So you're in a classroom with students.
I teach Cert 4 and Diploma of Community Services, Mental Health, Drugs and Alcohol. You know, I've got qualifications in mental health and drugs and alcohol, postgrad studies in psychology.
And a lot of people that come through that space are addicts in recovery.
Yeah, addicts in recovery. A lot of my OD students, 90% of them, 99% sometimes, are are addicts, former addicts, and that are in recovery. Yes,
and they're looking at making meaningful
working.
change.
Yes, the course is both. It's an opportunity for them to utilize their lived experience.
Yeah.
In terms of impacting on other people's lives, but it's also about their own growth. Even though it's not about therapy, I do create a sort of therapeutic environment. Having worked in rehabs and been a recipient of services within rehabs, I've gone to a number of different rehabs. Some work, some don't. But it's about creating that therapeutic environment that's about healing, growth, and learning, and knowing how to share, how to empower people. It's not about our story. It's not about our story. Sometimes hearing people's stories really helps. I have students that sometimes are given the opportunity to share their story in order to give someone an insight into that part.
Yeah.
Some people have very diverse experiences, very traumatic experiences. We need to understand that journey in order to be able to help someone. Where it's appropriate, we share. Yeah. Although in the public sector, there's no self-disclosure,
Yes.
So there is a balance of that.
I can't give you advice, but my experience says that other people have done this.
Yes.
And what about in the more physical space? How do you help others with their aggression and channeling it into positive ways?
I teach boxing, a little bit, a bit of boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, judo, I was in wrestling. Not as much these days because I'm getting a little bit old. Physical training, weight training. A lot of the trauma is in their body, right? It's in their body. And sometimes it needs to be expressed. But basically, I put their body under stress and under tension. And even doing push-ups and sit-ups, they learn to increase the amount of push-ups or sit-ups they're doing. Time under tension, it helps them to grow not only physically but also emotionally, psychologically and spiritually. It's when you engage in struggle, even when you're doing a bit of some sparring drills or some grappling, it's in the struggle that you actually go stronger. So you learn to translate that physical struggle with the emotional struggle. When you're dealing with that urge to use again, I sometimes have, often I get them to externalize their addiction as an opponent. And for a lot of the people I work with, it resonates with them.
Yes.
Because they'll step in when the urge comes. They realize, okay, I'm stepping into the arena or the cage with a very deadly opponent that is my addiction, and they will use that same mindset that they learnt in their physical training to overcome their emotional training. To not allow the urge or the emotion to overcome them because they've learned self-control and self-discipline. They've put their body under stress. When you put your body under stress, you want to give in. You want to give up.
Yeah.
So it's learning to push a little bit beyond every time.
So it's not just, I've said about the physical exertion, it's up here as well, and it's in the mind.
It's in the mind. It's about strengthening the mind. So martial arts is always about the body, mind, and spirit.
Yep.
So there seems to be three components to the human being. Some people say more, but you've got the physicality, you've got the physical being. And so I'm into healthy healthy eating, nutrition, sleep, all that sort of stuff. So working on the body. And then there's what they call the soul, or the mind and the emotions. Some people equate the soul is the mind and the emotions and the will. We need to strengthen that. We need to strengthen our will. We need to exercise our will. We need to use our mind to reframe reality in order to move forward. And then there's that other dimension, which is a little bit indefinable. It's often the spirit, body, mind, and spirit. So soul and mind are often interconnected. And then there's the spirit, the essence of who you are. When those three are in balance, we're able to really not only just survive, we're able to thrive and create and make a difference in the world. So
Beautiful.
It's I don't quite understand it, but I understand it. I know it here, but it's very hard to articulate it. But I know it here.
Yeah,
because I've achieved that balance between body, mind, and spirit.
I think balance is a really good way of putting it.
Yes.
Like through my active addiction, and even my life, really, it was always been about the highest of highs. But then with that comes the lowest of lows, So people would often see me operating at 9 or 10, but they wouldn't see me at the 1s and 2s. And my life now is much more about balance.
Yeah.
So I could go and lift heavy weights this morning, but then I sit down and have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And I'll have some time to myself later on to just quieten down before I go back to my family, you know. So for me, it's much more about balance and contentment.
Yeah.
You know,
I
rather
like that.
than...
Yeah, and that also applies to me. You know, I was either really up or down.
So how does life look like now as a balanced version of Joe? What has that brought you?
Peace, purpose, fulfillment. And I have an awesome relationship with my ex-wife. I've got 8 grandkids and 8 of my own and 3 step grandchildren, so 11 grandchildren. You know, so
what a beautiful family to experience.
Yeah, the oldest is 16, and there's a few all ages in between, and the youngest is 2.5. You know.
Oh wow!
So he's the boss of all the. You know? There's only 2 little girls there, most all boys. You know.
Well, what a great role model that they have in you, and where you're at in your life.
'Cause I'm present. You see, I find that a lot of grandparents are not present. They're caught up in their own, you know, their arthritis or their own pain or their own medical issues or barely coping with life. When you feel you're doing what you're meant to do, and that the key thing for me is making a difference in people's lives, particularly the people who are closest to me, being present, being there for them, being there whenever we all get together. My kids and their partners all catch up and they talk. My role is to connect with the kids, to be present with the kids, to play with them, to play their games, whatever they're playing, you know?
Yeah.
Can't run around like I used to with my bung knee, but is to be there for them and to be a listening ear, to be a knee that they can sit on like the little ones, or to just be a shoulder, you know, they can lean on, you know, particularly the older boy, Jet. You know, sometimes, you know, he has issues with his old man, my son. Yeah. He can come and talk to me. You know?
Well, you've been there.
Yeah,
You've
I've been
done
there.
it. And what a beautiful full circle moment, you know, that you are now able to be there and present for your grandchildren, because it just shows we always have a second chance.
Correct. I decided, you know, that many years ago to change the world one person at a time, and that's what I'm doing, just one person at a time. Treat people with love, with respect, with dignity. Journey with them. Sometimes you might journey with them for a short time, sometimes for a long time. I always think, what can I give to this person to make them achieve their goals and be the best version of themselves? And what can they teach me so that I in turn can grow and be a better human being? So that's how I view people now. Not what I can get, how I can use them, you know? Whether they're an asset or anything like that. Yeah.
That seems like a beautiful way of winding up today's conversation. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
That's pretty much it.
Joe, thank you. It's been a real honour and a pleasure to meet you, and I hope we can stay connected.
No, definitely.
Thanks for your time. Hi, I'm James. Thanks for joining me on this journey. Please note that Slaying Sober podcast is an active service with no monetary reward. I intend to keep it this way. If you've enjoyed this, please rate on your chosen platform, tell your friends, or follow us on Instagram at Slaying Sober Pod. Your support is appreciated, and I feel the love. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us today on Slaying Sober. If you're sober curious, in addiction, or know someone who could benefit from listening, please share this episode with them. Jump over to Instagram and say g'day at Slaying Sober Pod, and follow us on Spotify to hear the latest episodes come out. Until then, keep slaying sober.